Welcome, dear viewer. I hope you are having a wonderful night. Tonight, I'll be telling some terrifyingly scary stories. I hope you are warm and ready. Let's begin. My husband and I had been trying for a baby for the longest time. Yeah, I know you're probably going to laugh at that sentence. I've been married to Matthew for 3 years now. I've been trying to get pregnant for such a long time, but to no avail. My gynecologist told me that due to PCEO, eggs haven't been able to mature properly, which has made conception more challenging. So when I noticed that I was feeling nauseous and my menstruation blood was nowhere to be seen, I took a test, and it's no surprise that I was happy. I did everything to make sure this baby came out of my womb healthy, and I mean everything. I have no idea where I failed, if it was even my fault. The doctors told me that the baby would be born sick from a congenital heart defect, and its chances of survival were low. They told me to abort it and save myself the trouble of going through the grief of your child dying, and instead deal with the one of losing a fetus. But this wasn't just a fetus to me. This was my child. This might be my only chance to ever truly be a mother, I thought to myself. My mother had always wanted to be a grandmother, and I didn't want to disappoint her. Ever since I was a child, she'd tell me, "Wait until you see how it is to be a mother, and I can't wait for you to give me a grandchild." Well, why can't you just adopt? Some people would ask me, and the answer to that is, I want to raise a child that has my own blood flowing through it. I have nothing against people who decide to adopt, but I just couldn't see myself doing that. Oh, how much I regret that now. Going into labor was one of the most difficult things I've gone through. Some women report not remembering what the pain felt like, or they straight up claim giving birth isn't as bad as some people make it out to be. That was far from the truth for me. I felt as if I was trying to push a rock out of my stomach, through an opening that was not meant by nature to have a being that big pass through it. I felt as if I was being broken apart. My entire soul was torn open with a rusty knife, with no analgesic and no mercy whatsoever. I decided to go the natural way too, so no C-sections. I really thought I knew better than my doctors, who've had experience with women in my position for years, and have paid thousands of dollars to get the education they need to be where they are. Please make it stop. It hurts, were some of my words. I want to go C-section, please, I begged them, but to no avail. I'm sorry, miss, but it's too late for that. Come on, you're almost there. We know you can do it, said one of the medical professionals. I was holding Matt's hand for dear life. I gripped it so tight that I knew I was hurting him. If I have to suffer this much, I'm sure he can deal with a little pressure. Come on, sweetie. I know you can do it. You've come so far, said Mark. I know that he was trying to be supportive, but to me, he was just irritating at that moment. He wasn't the one that was being shredded into millions of pieces. Of course, I didn't want to tell him that, because even at my worst, his sensitive butt was just going to be offended to the point where he wouldn't speak to me for days. I couldn't deal with his immaturity now, could I? After I was done birthing that monstrosity of a baby, they let me hold her. It was a baby girl. Miracle, I said. Her name is going to be Miracle. Its symbolic name meant a lot to me, and I hope it'll mean a lot to her too. After the countless doctors I had to go to throughout the last 3 years, and the time I spent bringing her into this world, which felt like decades, I hope she appreciates her mother. The doctors put her in one of those incubators. I was made very aware of the situation that she was going to be in and what her chances of survival were. Do you know what it was like when they told me the baby had died after a few hours of fighting for her life? All that effort and suffering, and for what? My heart was mercilessly shattered into countless agonizing shards. I only got to hold her once for a few seconds before she was taken away from me forever. My beautiful Miracle, my baby. I'd opt for childbearing her 100 more times than this. Sometimes I even wondered if someone had physically torn my heart from her chest. Maybe she even did it. I do not know at this point. The doctors were right. I should have just aborted her. I would have spared myself and my entire family so much suffering. I was too selfish to think I'd ever be a biological mother. I broke Matt now too, as well as my mother. She arrived at the hospital 10 minutes after her niece had died. She never even got to see her alive. My mother hasn't talked to me since then. She didn't even come to check on me. She probably thinks it's my fault. Since we arrived home from the hospital, Matt's been doing his best to not show his sadness and to be strong and supportive. But I know it's there. I know it's there. I know it's there because every night I hear him leaving our bedroom to cry in the living room. I wish I could just go there, hug him, and tell him that everything is going to be okay. But I can't. I can't. I can't because I'm a mess myself, physically and emotionally, and I'm the reason he's there bailing his eyes out. It hurts so much to know what a horrible wife I've been. The funeral was a complete mess. I saw so many people crying there. The bastards didn't even know my child. They'd never even seen her, and yet they were shedding tears as if their child had died and not mine. It was a disgrace. It was impressive even. Their crocodile tears are unquestionable proof that if they'd pursued the media, they would have become successful and famous in a quick time. So many of them were like, "I'm so sorry, and I'm here for you," as if that were true. You know who didn't shed a single drop of tears? Me. Do you know why? Because I had other plans. Maybe I can't bring my child back, but what I can do is make a doll. In the funeral home, I demanded that they leave me alone with my child. They were highly against that, as me being alone would be too emotionally distressing for me. They were right. So many mothers complain because their children cry too much. What about my baby, who's never going to let another sound come out of her mouth ever again? They are so ungrateful. They don't deserve their children. They don't know what it's like to lose a child, to lose a part of your soul. Part of my soul that I was going to bring back soon. When my baby was born, there was hair on her head. This is something that doesn't happen often, but I was fortunate enough that it gave me the chance to cut a little bit of her hair. I was going to put in the custom reborn. I'd had ordered the day my baby was pronounced dead. Maybe the doll can't call me mama, cry, or even move, but it was all that I had left. What else was I supposed to do? I can't just give birth to another child, and I still don't want to adopt. I can't get pregnant anyway, and plus I can't bear having it in my stomach and then going through the hell of giving birth to it, just for it to die a few hours later. I paid $16,999 for that doll. Keep in mind that that was all the money I had saved up since being together with Matt. If my husband were to leave me, I'd end up homeless, and I have no idea if I'd even be able to keep working at the office. And I have no idea but to keep working at the office I'm at right now. I hadn't waited for a package like ever since I was a child. I couldn't sleep, and the day of the estimated arrival, I woke up at 5 a.m. I waited for a few more hours until I saw the man arrive with my order. I didn't even wait for him to enter our property. The moment I saw him through the window while I was pacing around the room like I was listening to music, while I was maladaptive daydreaming, I ran out of the house to reach him. He probably thought I was crazy, getting out of the house and running toward him like a serial killer. But I don't care. I yanked the blue fancy box out of his hands, and I didn't even bother to really observe his facial expression, which I can only assume was pure weirded out. I tore the packaging like a tiger tearing apart its prey, and the delivery guy just left, praying that I didn't go after him next, in case I didn't get what I was expecting. Luckily for me, the rebirth was beyond perfect. It was an exact replica of my deceased child that I wasn't given enough of the opportunity to really appreciate. Its eyes were open, as that was my exact request. Hence, I wanted to be able to stare at its dark hazel eyes for as long as I'm walking this very earth. Its hands were so small, and its cheeks were full of adorableness. My eyes filled up with tears, but not out of sadness, but instead of complete happiness. Now it's not the time to cry, I thought to myself. You finally have your baby back. Call me crazy, all you want. But the moment I held that doll in my hands, all of the sadness, pain, and grief faded away. The only thing I wondered was, how would Matt react once he saw her? I was scared at this point. I spent a ton of money on her, and I doubt that he'd like that. I guess I'm just going to have to lie to him, as it's my money after all. He has no idea how much or how little I had in the first place. I went on through the entire day, just staring deeply into her eyes while I was rocking her, swinging on my rocking chair. That's a funny set of words. When Matt came from work, he was shocked to see me in the living room with a baby in my hands. I guess he was expecting to see me just lying in my bedroom like usual, doing nothing but rotting away. And that is why he didn't even greet me properly, and instead just asked, "Honey, what are you holding?" I looked at him, pretending I hadn't heard the front door open. "Oh, hey, sweetheart, you're back. This is just a rebirth," I said. He approached us, and the look on his face when he saw an exact replica of his daughter was priceless. His eyes widened, and his mouth opened like he had seen a ghost. "Sweetie, that looks exactly like our baby," he stuttered, clearly freaked out by the figure he was seeing. "I know. I mean, she cost $17,000 for a reason," I said with a smile, as I moved my head upwards to look at my husband's gorgeous face. $17,000. What the fuck? You gave $17,000 for? For what, Matt? For our daughter? Sweetie, that isn't our daughter. That's just a doll. We had a rather big argument. I didn't want my baby to wake up because of him. So I just straight up ran to our bedroom, silently crying. I knew that he wouldn't understand. He barely ever does. I heard him leave through the front door. I wonder where he was going this time. I tried calling my mom for some emotional support. I have no idea what. But my calls were never answered. I wonder why. A few days had gone by, and nothing was heard from either my mom nor my husband. That is, until I heard on the news that there were 2 car accidents. 2 vehicles collided in a dramatic crash at the intersection of Willow Street and Pine Avenue, a serene locale in the heart of Oakwood Heights. The incident took a sinister turn as investigators discovered the number 16,999 scrawled in blood on the road near the wreckage, raising suspicions of foul play. Tragically, both vehicles erupted in flames, resulting in the horrific deaths of the occupants and leaving the community in shock. Authorities are now urgently probing whether this was a deliberate act, leaving the town with unsettling questions about a potentially larger, more sinister motive behind the incident. I looked down at the doll in my hands again. There was a smile on its face. It did not arrive that way. Growing up, I heard many stories of demons and angels. I grew up in a very religious household, but that is not relevant to my first encounter with a demon. I am an Uber driver, so I often bring young kids home from the bar on a late Friday night. This was like every other stop that I have had as an Uber driver. I pulled up outside of a popular nightclub and my client opened the passenger side door. It was odd that he sat up front. Most people just get in the back. His ride was a bit farther than the normal distance that I like to travel, but it was close to my home, and it was almost 3 a.m., so I was about done for the night. After he got in, I started to head towards his destination, roughly 31 meters away. I typically like to make small talk with my passengers, and I looked in his direction and noticed that he was dressed very formally for your typical nightclub kid. He was probably around 27 and 6 feet 3 inches, and his face seemed to be quite handsome. So in an attempt to start some small talk, I asked him, "So, did you have a good night, Kyle?" I got his name from Uber when I picked him up. "Not terrible. I got what I needed, but hoped that I would receive more." He said it in a deep but very reassuring voice. I don't know how to describe this. but it felt very trustworthy, similar to a fatherly-like tone. "How has your night been? Had any interesting encounters tonight?" he said. "No, not for me," I replied, showing him my wedding ring. He waited for a moment and said, "Is that really true? Did you not cheat on your wife Samantha 3 years ago after a fight that you had about money because she lost her job?" I looked at the GPS, and it said 26 minutes. "I am not sure what you are talking about," I replied with a stern tone in my voice. I increased the volume of the music on my steering wheel. This was not possible. I must just be hearing things since it was so late. No one knows that I had an affair and that it was a mistake. He must have just had a really good guess, I thought. "Would it cause you despair if she found out?" he said. "There would be nothing to find out because that didn't happen, and we are happy," I replied. "True. It wouldn't make much of a difference because she has been aware since early last year. Stephanie works at the new firm that she works at. I never understood how humans forgive each other for such betrayal, a truly despicable quality." We hit a stoplight, and I slammed on the brakes and exclaimed loudly, "Who the fuck are you? What do you want from me?" I was visibly angry at this time. Glancing at the GPS 18 meters until arrival, the man took a moment to straighten himself in his seat after the sudden stop. "Please refrain from outbursts of anger. I have no use for anger. What I am interested in are your sins." He said it, almost sounding annoyed. He was supposed to be the one who was annoyed in the situation. "So then, what do you want? What do I have to give you to leave me and my family alone?" I said. He smiled a large smile. "I do not want anything from you. I would much prefer to make a deal instead if you are interested," he said. "It doesn't feel like I have much choice." "What kind of deal do you want?" I glanced at the time from 11 a.m. until my arrival. "What I want are your sins," he said with a slur like a snake. "You want my sins? What does that even mean? You want me to confess to you like some kind of priest," I replied, only getting angrier. "Quite the opposite, actually. I would like you to commit sins in my name, and I will reward you equivalently for the sin that you have committed. How does that sound?" I looked at the time. There was 3 minutes left. I just wanted this crazy man out of my car at this point, and just wanted to keep him talking so that I could drop him off and head home. "Yeah, sure. Can you give me the rest of the details, and I will give you all of my sins," I said in an overly dramatic tone. The man smiled from ear to ear. "Great. This makes my night a good one, sir. If you accept, please take my card and keep it with you as you commit your sins. It would be even better if you said my name, as it is printed on the card when you do it. I will visit you again next year at this time to collect." I will visit you again next year at this time to collect. I should also mention that if I return and I am not satisfied with what you have to offer me, I will take something else as payment and never visit you again. I then pulled up to the location that he requested to be dropped off at. It was just an old 24-hour diner just off the highway. "Yeah, sure Kyle was here, so get out," I said. "Wonderful," he said as he placed a card on my seat as he got out and I peeled out of there. The next year was rather difficult for me. I hit a man with my car by accident, killing him. I then became quite an alcoholic, and this affected my marriage. My wife and I had another fight, and I ended up spending the night at a hotel with a lady of the night. I stepped outside the hotel for a smoke. Another bad habit that I picked up along the way. I lit my cigarette and took a puff when I heard a familiar voice. Absolutely marvelous. My new attendant of sin. I truly did not expect products such as this from you. Kyle said it in an almost overjoyed tone. Manslaughter, infidelity, addiction, and neglect. I never imagined that you would produce such fruits. For such miraculous contributions to myself, I will grant you 3 rewards. What can I do for you in return for such quality sins? I stumbled back, almost dropping my cigarette. What the hell? How? What? What? What are you doing here? How did you find me? What are you talking about? I yelled. Why, whatever do you mean? It is 3:31 a.m. on the same day as the last, as I said I would return. I am here to collect and reward you, just as I promised. A demon never goes back on his word. Now tell me what it is that you wish for in reward as part of our deal, he replied. Wait, you're a demon, I said. Indeed, I am. Specifically, a demon that is in need of sins, and you are going to give me some quite valuable sins. Now, what would you like as your reward, so that I may collect your sins? Wait, hold up. What do you mean? I never kept your card. Shit, I almost completely forgot about you. Just leave me alone and get away from me, I yelled at him. He then looked down at the ground, and I felt very uneasy. Even though he was standing several parking spaces away from me, I felt very unsafe. Do you remember what I told you would happen if you did not fulfill your end of our arrangement? And you did keep my card. It has been in your card this entire time. You never got rid of it, and that means that you accepted our deal. The very car in which you committed these very sins I will take. From you, the equivalent of what I am owed today if you do not agree. I started to speak, but he began to walk towards me and cut me off. Have you ever heard the human saying, do not write checks that you cannot cash? He was standing right in front of me now and looking me in the eyes. I could see his eyes were pitch black, consuming any light that was around them. I will ask you once more, do you wish to select your payment, or would you rather I take mine? He said this in a deep voice that sent shivers down my spine. I stumbled back and almost pissed myself. He was very serious. I was terrified of, and I had no idea what he was going to do. So I screamed, yes, yes, but I don't know what I want. Kyle then calmed down a bit, spoke in a much calmer tone. Well, you do have great sins to offer, but since you bear such fruit, I can't exactly just let you go. The sins you will produce in the future are worth much more to me than that. I can also not influence your decision. You must make it, and my patience is wearing thin. Thinking fast, I just blurted out what came to mind, as I was terrified and just wanted him to leave his eyes. I swear to you that they were the most unnatural things that I had ever seen, like he had black holes where his eyes should be. So I just said the first three things that came to mind. Money, safety, and health. Now please just go. Kyle smiled, and his eyes went back to normal. Very well. I will grant you money, safety, and health in exchange for your sins. Please let this be easier next year. I then blink, and I wake up in bed at home with my wife. The demon kept true to his words. No one remembered the sins that I committed that the demon had taken from me that night. Everyone forgot about the man that I hit with my car. I felt no need to drink or smoke. My wife forgot all about the fight that we had the other night. He also made true his rewards, as he called them. That same day, a bank account with $10 million in it was opened in my name. My body became athletic, and I probably lost 60. 5 pounds overnight. I was in sheer awe at everything that had happened. I fell down the stairs that morning because I was too bewildered to realize that I had missed a step. When I hit the bottom and got back up, I felt no pain, not even a bruise. Kyle, or his real name that I came to learn later, Calcifer, would visit me every year to collect my sins and make them as if they never happened, and would then reward me for them. It has been almost 55 years since I met Calcifer in the passenger seat of my Uber. I have committed many sins in his name. I have yet to disappoint him yet, and I do not want to find out what happens if I do. But the one thing that I know for him, once you make a deal with if there is no turning back. All of these deals are eternal. I have now lived over 100 years. My wife died sure years ago, I am getting old devil, and I will no longer request youth as a gift from Cassifer. At 8, I thought this was a great again. I could do anything with no consequences. But year after first, he continues to take my sins and slowly deal. My emotions along with year. I will continue to fulfill my end of this deal until I die. I no longer wish to live. There is no point take without them. Calcifer took something that I didn't know I even had. The ability to make mistakes in my life is almost completely without consequence. I no longer even know what the difference between right and wrong is. There is no point because anything anymore. Demons will take things you didn't even know you had to lose. Never make a deal with a demon. You never know what they really take in return.